Hey everybody, what's going on? Rams here again with another North America League VOD review. This is from Playday 1, Tempo Storm versus TSM on Oregon. And the bans are TSM banning Thatcher and Wamai, and Tempo Storm banning Maverick and Mira. And there's nothing strange about these bans except for the Wamai ban. And I'm kind of curious as to why they went with a Wamai ban instead of a Jaeger ban. And the first thing that comes to my mind is that since I've already watched the match and I know like kind of how TSM attack it, which I'll get in more in depth into like as the match starts. Um, I think that the reason they banned Wamai instead of Jaeger, and this is the only reason I can see other than they just think Wamai is annoying and they don't want to have to deal with it, is that their game plan revolves around obviously being able to use their as much utility as they can. And the thing about banning Wamai instead of Jaeger is that most of the time on this map, there are a lot of different entry points or different directions you can attack every objective from. So, in my mind, what I'm thinking their game plan is that if they ban Jaeger instead of, or if they ban Wamai instead of Jaeger, that they don't have to worry about as much dispersed utility. Like, Wamai can't throw one Wamai disc at every single entryway into the site and somebody is going to be losing out on their utility. Like when you have a Jaeger, you can only place down 3 ADSs. So basically, they're forcing Tempo Storm to pick Jaeger instead of Wamai so that they can utilize all of their utility as they surround the objective. So that's just what my guess is. The other thing to take note of is in TSM's attacking lineup, Bolo actually took Kali, and I think that this is the right thing to do. I think that taking Kali now in your attacking lineup, in just like even in ranked, is definitely the way to go. Or the small SMG that she has is the same one as that Clash has. That thing shreds. It's great. It's a great gun. So I don't see anything wrong with bringing Kali, and I think that when you need to open walls and you don't want to have to take a lot of map control, and Oregon's a huge map, so instead of like wasting a lot of time droning out every tiny little thing, like making sure no one's in meeting or being subjected to the hatch and having to push from the front and all that kind of stuff, they can still work together as a team and just like push together. So basically, as you can see, now that they have the attic open, they leave Shala there on the Nomad, which makes sense because Nomad can watch her own flank via the air jabs. So they still can apply pressure from the attic while also working on opening up the master bedroom side. The only thing here is that Creators is actually pulsing out that Shala is the only one left in the attic. And this prompts Tempo Storm before it's too late and TSM takes more and more control that they're trying to take. It prompts them to actually push that player in the attic so they can like alleviate that pressure. They've already, lost one player trying to pressure him, but they have two more down below, and then Crazy actually comes through the attic itself to finally get the kill onto Shala. Obviously, like I'm talking about what's happening ahead of time because as you can see, Shala's just like obviously he knows he's getting pressured, he knows he's getting pushed, but he can't combat three at once. He did it. He was able to get Mark though, so that's still good pressure in that regard. Unfortunately, Merc got taken out by Dream at the bottom of White Stairs. He was obviously trying to push in a fashion that would benefit his team either at the big window or a bottom white or at the generator window. And either way, it's a position that needs to be pressured regardless. So Merc lost his fight, whatever. It's not a big deal. Um, Achieved here also trying to pressure a little bit. When you're in a 3 versus 4 attacking upstairs, you really are limited on options. And if you're going to be opening up the generator wall, or it's I guess it's not the generator wall anymore. There's no generator there, but the wall that goes from master into the closet. Once if you're going to be pressuring from there, White Stairs is the next best pinching location because you can hold the crossfire through the rotate hole that Dream is laying near at the moment. Um, so what they're doing makes sense to me. They trade out well, but Tempo has the man advantage, so TSM lose their first attacking round. And I mean, it's Oregon. It's a tough map for attack right now. I'm sure that once Ace comes out, he'll alleviate some of that difficulty that attackers are having on this map. But I don't think it's a bad map by any means, but I definitely do think it's defender sided, especially right now. It just takes so long for the attackers to drone out everything. There's a lot of small rooms and a lot of like little places defenders can hide if they do happen to roam. So it's difficult for attack to pressure the site effectively from multiple locations. As you can see, Shala got picked off, Merc got picked off, and then the House of Cards kind of fell apart, which is the attack on Oregon. So, you know, it's just the way it goes. But I thought Tempo Storm defended that really well. I didn't see anything special about their defense other than, bringing bringing typical operators and defending it in a typical way. I didn't see them make any rotation holes that were in weird places. I didn't see them, like really do anything out of the ordinary. The pulse pick, you can kind of take it or leave it, but it worked out for Tempo in that instance. So I see nothing wrong with it there. But the Thatcher ban is definitely going to affect the way that TSM attacks, no matter where they attack, because there's always a wall to get open on all the objectives on Oregon, and there's always going to be a mute jammer at least one of those walls. So, as we can see here, Tempo Storm are extending into blue with multiple ADSs and Goyo shields. And this is what I was talking about. If Wamai was available, he could put a couple Wamai discs in blue and then put like a Wamai disc in freezer or a Wamai disc at the main stairs and kind of hinder TSM's like push into the building or into the objective at least from multiple like facets, not just the one. Merc right now is taking control from the west side over, which I do think is appropriate. It does need to happen, especially if you are going to end up, trying to hold flanks, because now that that door is closed, Merc knows that he doesn't have to worry about a flank from there, and the rest of his team has been droning for a little while, so they already know that nobody is upstairs, and they know that, all of Tempo Storm is downstairs, except for Creators, because he's playing at the rear stage, but if rear stage was getting pressured, he would have gone back downstairs already. So one thing I want to point out about this map, particularly attacking downstairs, is it plays a lot like Bank defending lockers downstairs, which, Reaper, who used to be an analyst for Rogue when Rogue was a North American team, he pointed this out pretty aptly, is that basically Smoke plays in freezer and everybody plays downstairs holding something separate. It's just such a large objective. You need everyone downstairs to be able to make sure that you're holding everything appropriately. So right now, Bolo is utilizing his Kali bolts to make sure that they can get the main hatch open. So there's a couple different ways that they're pressuring this. So basically, they've made their presence known on the freezer stairs. So Tempo is not going to push up freezer stairs. They've opened the main hatch, so they know that their Tempo's not going to challenge the main stairs anymore. That leaves Merc and Achieved the ability to pressure those positions. Achieved is actually going to be pressuring the main stairs directly, whereas the rest of the push is actually going to be going through the construction tunnel. And Achieved is basically going to try to have to hold his own flank up near the main stairs. He's just basically locking down the defender rotation, making sure that they know they're getting pressured from at least 1 to 2 angles, and they're not going to be able to just, focus all of their attention in one direction, which is kind of how, a dirt push, a dirt push kind of ends up. So right now, TSM does a good job of getting rid of the Goyo shields and forcing Sloppy back into the objective, and now they're dropping the electrical hatch and pushing in. Bolo gets a nice pick here, but because they can't get the electrical wall open, they have to plant in a different location, and this is just really good coverage from TSM, because most likely Shala has some kind of air jab, at least somewhere in the hallway, and then Merc is playing on top of Geo as he's planting, which is really the only thing he can do. There's no good position for Geo to plant because he can't plant behind the shelf because Crazy, that we just saw die in the last kill cam right here, would have thrown a C4 over the shelf and not only gotten a kill, but downed the diffuser. So I think pushing in as a team and like literally sitting on top of the person planting is the best way. And I don't think that it's viable to plant behind that shelf unless you know that the defenders don't have any more C4s. And with the lineup that Tempo is running, they have the potential, at least like during the 6-pick and like ban phase. TSM is taking note of how many potential C4s Tempo actually have, plus smoke. So basically, because they see that there's 3 C4s and a smoke, they know that they definitely, most likely, are not going to be able to plant behind the shelf at the electrical door. So overall, that was a great attack from TSM. It worked out for them. It didn't look like it should have worked, but somehow it did. And, that's just props to TSM. They're one of the best teams in the world, I think. So I don't see anything. It's not like, I don't think, when I say that, like, great job to them. Like, that was almost an unwinnable scenario, and they made it happen. So they made it work. Tempo Storm going back downstairs are just going to adjust their strategy ever so slightly. I don't see them. I don't think they actually change any of their positioning during their actual defense here. I just think that they, position a few things a little differently. And one of the things that I want to point out is that Cade just threw an Electric Claw onto the freezer hatch in a position that you'll see during this round. I believe Bolo is unable to destroy that Electric Claw with his Cali bolts, the gadget. I don't remember what the gadget is called. I really should. It's just called a lance or something like that. But let me just get into the idea behind TSM's attack. First thing they want to do, excuse me, I've got a little bit of a cold. Sorry guys. Is they want to take control of the big tower. The reason they take control of big tower is so that they know they're not going to get flanked from this position, and they can eventually, inevitably, pressure from this position as well. So Shala's going to go in there, take control of it with Nomad, and then play in the tower and wait for the best time for his team to attack. Creators gets a kill onto Merc, trying to push back, trying to push down the tower stairs, which, Merc getting a little aggressive. What else is new? He dies. He probably shouldn't have died there, but they're just trying things. They're trying to feel out Tempo Storm's defense, see how hard they're actually holding these things. So now Shala has, taken control of tower. He's droning for himself, trying to call out just the little bit of positioning that he can, but making absolutely sure that nobody is going to be pushing him up the stairs. He's mainly just going to be watching a drone on the stairs to see if anybody pushes up, and now he has to actually watch it with his gun. Cali, played by Bolo and Geo, are going to open up the electrical hatch again. What this does is not only does the defender playing in pillar, aka the boiler room, have to worry about that hatch now, but they also have to, be wary of the fact that that hatch is now open. Well played by Mark, however, because he is able to keep the hatch closed with a well-timed Cali. So, TSM are going to have to figure out another way to get in here, and they are going to end up opening the electrical wall, but there's mute jammers on it, and so basically they're going to have to push in with no information and try to get, these walls open. They have to get something open. So instead of opting to go for the freezer hatch, which, sorry, I forgot that that was a different round, they are able to get the electrical wall open and open the single panel wall. And this doesn't work out as well for them, because as they push in, not only are they down a man, but the pressure is all limited to one side. And Tempo knows this. Tempo knows that nobody is pushing from anywhere else. So basically, all they have to do is watch 2 doorways, and that's it. They just have to watch 2 doorways, and they can watch like all the way through the rotate into blue from one position, which is in the freezer. So contrary to what you might think, the best anchor position when the attackers are trying to go for a plant is the player playing at the freezer door, because he can see most of the objective from that doorway and is basically protected by all hard, indestructible walls. Now, do I think that TSM could have played that a little differently? Maybe. Do I think that their first attack worked and then they tried something different and it didn't work. I think that they were more just going for something different so that they weren't as predictable. But I also believe that if they would have been able to open up the electrical hatch, which I think Mark was picking up his Cade and throwing it back on, going back and forth. So I don't think they would have been able to actually get that hatch open. So it's a great adaptation from Tempo to play that a little bit differently so that they would basically force TSM into a bottleneck. So Tempo Storm did a lot better on that defense, but I feel like they still should have won the other one. Now, you see the way that Dream is positioning his mute jammers. He's actually positioning them further back from the wall. This still jams the wall and prevents Cali from actually getting the walls open. But as you can see, TSM has decided that Cali just wasn't working out for them that round, and Bolo decided that he was going to take IQ instead, which will point out exactly where the mute jammer is. They can still shoot it from below. They can get rid of a lot more utility down below. So their idea here is not only to try to find creators playing on the pulse, which they saw in the 6th pick in the reveal phase, but they're going to also try to take more control down below than they have in previous rounds, particularly in attacking this site. So Bolo waiting for information from his team. Creators is, trying to play this doorway, but basically Bolo was just the bait because Merc was already coming in and they knew that he was playing down there. They knew Creators was downstairs, so they basically just pinched him. Picture perfect, too easy, not that big a deal. Show pressure one location, push from another, hold that defender in position. Right now, Sloppy's in a lot of trouble. He's gonna have to run away before he potentially gets pushed. And he's basically like pinched in meeting now, but they have this rotate into kitchen, which is I think what you have to do on this objective. I think that if you're going to have a roamer downstairs, because it's not that difficult to necessarily trap someone in meeting if you're taking tower, it's not hard to trap him in meeting, especially with someone outside of the front door like Achieved is playing. So I think having the rotates into kitchen and through server makes it a lot more unpredictable for the attackers to try to judge where the roaming defenders are going. So I really like that adaptation by Tempo. Right now, though, we're seeing a lot of the same push. Basically, this time, however, they have the man advantage. So Shala, once again, is going to stay in the tower, and Tempo with a man disadvantage is not going to be playing in an aggressive way because they don't want to further increase the gap. Because the further you go, going from a 5v4 into a 4v3 is a vast difference, especially when there are so many different ways to get pressured onto this objective and some of these other objectives on this map. So they want to have at least 4 players in order to, watch each angle. Sloppy playing downstairs is going to prevent anybody from coming up white stairs. That's all he's doing. He's just playing passively, waiting for someone to come up white. Then the rest of the team is pushing through the master. They're going to take trophy. They're going to open the wall and they're going to try to plant. So we're going to have defenders playing in the attic, players playing by the big window, and playing inside of kids. And then obviously top white, you see crazies there right now. Basically just to add that little bit of pressure. So you have 3 players who can hold different crossfires onto the trophy door and to the breach, and then you have one downstairs basically holding their flank. So Bolo right here is aware that Sloppy's nearby. He either heard him or got some kind of call out from a teammate. And, just unfortunately loses the gunfight here. So Sloppy now goes to, I think, push up main. Mark actually gets 1. I can't remember. Yeah, he gets 2, but I can't remember from what position. Just basically peeking the wall. And then Sloppy's on the rotation back. So after he downed the diffuser, there's no way for TSM to win. They did try to add some pressure from the big window towards the end there, but it was too late. So now this is the first time we're going to see a different defensive location. We're going to see the meeting hall and kitchen. And there's a big debate right now among a lot of players as to which site is better, kitchen and dining or kitchen and meeting hall. And kitchen and meeting hall is objectively better because you can hold angles above kitchen, playing in kids' dorms and in attic above meeting to defend the objective. Whereas you can't do that on kitchen and dining. It's much more of a horizontal play. And there just isn't a lot of wiggle room when you have one objective that the attackers are basically going to take control of no matter what. Like when you're defending dining and kitchen, it's very difficult to keep the attackers out of the dining room. Even if you play inside of showers with reinforcements, it's still difficult against an organized team. So Tempo Storm opting to go to kitchen and meeting, that's good. They're going to have holes inside of security, along with a rotational and a castle barricade. They're going to try to play crossfires into the B objective in case TSM try to plant there. They also have castle barricades and the hatch open inside of meeting, and they're basically going to anchor position either in the rotation between meeting hall and kitchen, or have like a very very like top heavy defense with lots of holes above, holding various doorways into the objective. Because unless TSM want to use a thermite on the attic on the rear stage wall, they're not going to have a lot of pressure onto the objective, because pushing in that way, like opening up the rear stage wall, is very one dimensional, and you always have to be scared that someone's going to get wall banged or flanked from the attic at any given time. So even if they were to take attic control and rear stage, they would still have to worry about both splits, the rotate, and a potential flank from either the basement or upstairs in general. So they're opting to push through small tower into dining and then into kitchen. And in this case, they have to apply some kind of pressure above, but they're just not at the moment, and I don't think they were able to read into the way that Tempo Storm were going to be holding this, because with the way they're holding it right now, you have creators watching the white hallway, basically playing on the white stairs. So the castle barricade in the hallway can't get opened up. As we can see, creators is holding that angle from the freezer doorway right now, actually. But he's also preventing anybody from potentially running upstairs, because if anyone was to run past him and go up white stairs, he would hear it. He would hear them run up. So basically at this point, TSM are trying to figure out how they want to push this. They're deciding that they want to try to pinch into B-bomb from rear stage, because if they take control of rear stage and pressure the window that Achieved is at, and then also like push through the doorway, they can clear out the B objective and fight guys in server, but they can't fight these angles above. So at the end of the day, if you're attacking this objective, you have to push upstairs in some way, whether it's 2 downstairs, 3 upstairs, or 3 upstairs, 2 downstairs. Like, you have to pressure it. And so, as you can see, they open up the top of the attic, and they've switched their push to attacking A, because a lot of the defenders in B-bomb that are defending B-bomb are pretty much locked down. They're not going to be able to rotate through the site because Bolo and Shala are holding angles through various positions. So Shala is able to get one. Sloppy and Dream pick up one each. Achieve gets another. Crazy gets one. And TSM are just in poor positions here because they can't plant anywhere safely, because they never cleared out anybody upstairs. So Tempo Storm defended that well. Nice, vertical pressure onto the attackers. Good utilization of defensive utility. The attackers, couldn't ever really get into position to get rid of any of the defender utility. I don't think there was really anything that was destroyed except for a couple of reinforcements and maybe like some mute jammers. No castle barricades got opened up, except for maybe one on the rear stage side, but that doesn't really matter. So where are they defending? Let me look again. All right, so going back to a basement defense, we saw Tempo Storm win here before. And here's the thing I want to point out. When I was watching this game live, everybody, that I was watching it with was like, "Oh my God, Tempo Storm's beating TSM 4-1. Tempo Storm's like looking so good and blah blah blah, this and that." You have to keep in mind, it's Oregon defense. Like, defense is going to win multiple rounds, at least 4. Yeah, at least like you're at least going to win 4 guaranteed defenses if you're a professional team playing Oregon defense. It's just going to happen. But the fact that TSM get 1 attack changes everything. The fact that they even got 1 attack basically wins them the game. And you'll see when TSM switches over to defense how difficult it is for Tempo Storm to gain any kind of foothold or control or apply any kind of pressure without immediately just getting slaughtered. But when it comes to this defense, it's pretty standard. You hold the freezer, or excuse me, you reinforce the main hatch, you reinforce the freezer hatch, you reinforce the electrical hatch, you make a rotate into blue, and then you have one person play in the freezer, one person play near the pillar, one person play extended into blue, one person in the objective, either A or B, and then one person basically like watching main stairs. That's just how you defend this objective. There's no other way to do it. So right now, Merc holding main lobby is just waiting for Geo to come and open that main lobby hatch. Starts pressuring towards Freezer a little bit just to make Dream aware of his presence. Bolo uses one of his lances to get rid of a mute jammer. And I think he actually has to use 2 here because the first one for some reason didn't get it. And I think that this is a visible flaw with Callie's gadget. I don't think that it should be possible for a mute jammer or a Cade to elude Callie's lance. And we actually saw a nice shot from creators all the way to the split wall towards 90. So great pick off by creators there. Well played. I believe at one point it was actually like a punch hole versus a punch hole situation, which I thought was kind of funny. But I don't think that you should be able to like place Cades or place mute jammers in a position that Callie can't actually get. I don't think that should be possible. That'd be like if Bandit could place his Bandit batteries in positions on the wall that Thatcher couldn't get. Like, it's just crazy. But anyway, so now we have TSM 3-man pushing Freezer, and then I'm really curious as to where their last player is. And they're trying to open up this wall, but now that because Bolo had to use 2 Cali Lances on the hatch and 1 on the freezer hatch, like he wants to use 1 on the freezer hatch, 1 on the freezer wall, and 1 on the main hatch, because he had to use 2 on the main hatch, they can't open this wall now. And they're already at a man disadvantage. So, as long as Tempo Storm trades out, they're not going to lose because there's only literally one direction, potentially 2 directions that the attackers are going to come from. So you have the last attacker pushing down main stairs, and then the other 2 are pushing through freezer. And Shala actually almost wins this round here. It was actually pretty scary when I was watching it, but TSM are so good at trading in general. Like when I say that they shouldn't win these rounds, like they're still making it close. So they're not far away from winning a lot of these attacks. But some little bugs. I don't want to call them bugs. They're not bugs. It's just the functionality of some of the defensive gadgets trumps the counters that are supposed to be available for the attackers to utilize to, do their jobs. And they lost a round because of it. If they were able to open up the freezer wall, I think Tempo Storm crumbles there. I don't think Tempo Storm has a chance. But even if TSM were to get the freezer wall open, there aren't a lot of places in cover to play there, and there's a couple defensive locations that Tempo could have used to their advantage in that scenario anyway. So it's still hard to say, because if they had, placed a deployable shield in Laundry facing towards the freezer wall in this position here, then what can TSM really do? They're already so low on utility. Achieved already used at least 1 grenade to kill the player that was playing in the freezer behind another shield. So, these are just my speculations. You guys can obviously come up with your own interpretations. And if you have, things you want to say in the comments section to either prove me wrong or to question my logic behind certain things, please do. I'm not trying to sit here and be like, I'm correct always if you disagree with me, you're wrong. What I'm trying to say is that, like, these are just my observations. And I'm trying to be as educational as I can and as practical as I can with, instead of being like, this is the perfect way to do this is the perfect way to do that, that this is what they did, this is, why it worked, this is why it didn't work. These are some of the variables that you have to think about when you're not only watching these games, but potentially like playing in some of them. If you're a high level competitive player, like these are just some of the things that you should be thinking about. Um, so as we can see, Tempo Storm is, attacking pretty much the same way. At least for this downstairs objective, they're taking control of tower, or at least they thought it looked like they were, but they're taking control. It looks more like of the front now, but they have a lot of pressure on the west side of the map. So this has to be like an all freezer oriented push, which, like I said before, I don't think that that's really viable. You can't just push from one direction. You have to push from multiple. And I think that it takes a lot more hard destructive utility to get control of the freezer than it does to take control of like blue or pillar, because all you have to do is really open one wall and take control of construction, and you basically have the pillars and you're right up close to the objective. But when you're attacking the freezer, you're opening a hatch that the defenders can play around, and you're basically forced to bottleneck into one hallway. And you have to get the player out of the freezer or else you can't open the wall. So, like I said, these are just some variables. But as you can see here, Callie is trying to use her Lance ability to get the hatch open and can't because of the placement of the Cade. I feel like this is a problem not only with Callie's utility, but like a problem with the Thatcher ban. It's because Callie is nowhere near as good as Thatcher. I don't think Callie should be as good as Thatcher, but I think that if she deliberately uses her utility to help a hard breacher open something, they should be able to get it open afterwards. I don't think that the defenders should be able to position their utility in such a way that the attackers have to waste utility when they're already so strung out on like the utility they have to get rid of to push. So, as you can see, because they're having trouble pushing, they're running out of time, they're scrambling to actually put an attack together. They have made progress down the main stairs, but getting the main stairs in like frontal laundry control doesn't mean anything because there's so many defendable positions that they can play in. And there's really nowhere for the attackers to go. So at the end of the day, yes, it's a TSM flawless round. Yes, they played it well, but because they couldn't actually execute their initial plan because of the way a attacker's utility interacts with a defender utility and Thatcher's band, I feel like that's a little, you know, something that needs to be addressed. It's something that needs to be fixed, I think, at least for the top tier competitive players. But this is, like I said before, this is the start of TSM's comeback. They basically have like multiple flawless rounds in a row. Tempo Storm can't get a foothold of any kind. They can't get anything done. They initially, I believe initially they brought the IQ so they could pinpoint exactly where not only the mute jammers are, but where the Cade electric claws are. And they also didn't know where TSM was going to defend first. So, they had to kind of cover their bases. But now that they can accurately predict where TSM is going to go, they brought Sledge, most likely for his grenades, because what is he going to sledgehammer here unless Merc is going to decide to put a Evil Eye in some weird spot that makes no sense and Sledge is going to be able to sledgehammer, which should never be the case. It's they're obviously going to be utilizing him for grenades. The placement of his grenades is going to be really important, obviously. That hole downstairs, or that hole in generator, is actually really effective because it covers the classroom window and forces the attackers to come through the front door as opposed to coming in through the window and just like ashing below the wall. Because you can safely ash below the wall or Zofia below the generator wall from outside the classroom window. And any opportunity the attackers have to do something from a safe, secure environment, aka outside, they're going to do it because it's the safest way to utilize utility effectively and not give their bodies in trades to the defenders. So they're attacking basically the same way. They're taking attic control, or trying to take attic control by taking big tower. They're going to leave Dream inside of the attic, I believe. Unless they want him to rotate to big window, which is another position that Nomad could play effectively. But there needs to be air jabs in the tower. There has to be. It actually looked like Dream rotated away. Let me think for a second. I'm trying to figure out exactly why. I guess the only thing I can think of in terms of Dream's rotation away is that most of the team is going to be pushing through the attic, and they want to position Dream somewhere that he can cut off defender rotations with air jabs, and he might have already placed down his air jabs to cover flanks. And it's totally possible that they don't need the air jabs in attic because they want to push from there. But Achieved gets a nice kill here onto Sloppy off of some delayed intel off the drone, and then he drops down the hatch and is basically going to be able to rotate up Freezer. And Mark is holding this position, and Geo is actually going to be boarding off that door so that they are a little bit more safe at the bottom of white stairs, because they know that now if they are going to get pressured from bottom white, the attackers have to come through the main lobby and from split. So it basically just gives them a sound cue as to where the attackers could be coming from. And Merc also has holes above to watch, like towards the bottom white from behind the bed. He just has to be careful that no attackers basically sneak up on him. And now we're going to see basically Achieved and Geo playing at the bottom of white stairs to potentially go for a flank later in the round. Two of the attackers are pushing through the attic, and Shaw is actually going to get a nice double kill. He's playing up close, and it's weird that Tempo would decide to push through the attic like that when they hadn't established control anywhere else. And I really think that they needed to focus on trying to open up the generator wall, but they couldn't do it because not only did they not have downstairs control, they also didn't have Callie or, obviously Thatcher's band. So they couldn't get the mute jammer off the wall, and then it was pointless. They're losing their drones to not only the roaming defenders, but to the mute jammers that are positioned to where they can no longer pick up. They wouldn't be able to get their drones back, basically. So once again, TSM just, it looked like a flawless round. I think a couple of them might have died towards the end of that round, but it was basically a flawless round. And now Dream, getting off the Nomad brings bringing Callie so they can actually open something. It just doesn't look good for Tempo. They seem kind of all over the place, and once again, it's Oregon attack. There's only so much they can do in the current environment and with the way that the bans are going. Like if Maverick was left up, none of the attacking teams would have any issue opening at least something. But because Maverick's not available and Hibana's just not going to be effective, like if you can't have Thatcher or Callie in two places at one time. It would force that player to rotate a lot and have to focus on way more than they should have to. So even if they were able to bring a Hibana, it still wouldn't matter because they're going to have to expend at least a Callie to open up anything anywhere. At least anything of value to the defenders. Because they could shoot a Hibana or put a thermite on a wall that the defenders don't need on the objective, but that just wastes utility and doesn't really help anything because the defenders will either play that position more or they'll back off completely, and now you've just wasted utility on a wall that's completely useless. Right now though, Tempo Storm wanting to push upstairs like I was talking about, you have to establish some kind of upstairs pressure attacking this objective, and basically they want to make sure that the hatch in attic is free for them to hold an angle near or onto, at least hold the rotate. And I actually really like the way that Tempo Storm decided to attack this. So basically they're going to open up the split wall while pressuring a little bit upstairs and holding an angle from garage through the split wall. Unfortunately, they lost their gunfights here, but I like the idea because if they're able to hold that doorway to the rear stage from inside of garage, or get someone in behind the cabinets to the right where not where the diffuser's down, but a little bit further up towards the north, Like maybe they can hold that door better. And then Creators was holding the hallway inside of 90 right near a classroom. They could have gotten that plant down. It would have been really difficult for the defenders to come back from that because, they would have also had Sloppy upstairs to potentially make something happen. See, so in the current position that Tempo Storm are in, if Sloppy could have gotten control of the hatch from above, they could have planted no problem. So it's kind of, an unfortunate set of circumstances for Tempo Storm here, and they actually almost bring it into a, they bring it into a 2v2, and they're running low on time. They don't have any intel, and now they rotate into Kitchen, which I think is the right play, but there's still nowhere for them to really, play. And utilizing that distraction from Geo, Achieve is able to just pick up an easy double, because if they know that one attacker is planting, that it's basically, a 2v1 while an attacker is planting in a 2v2. So it's a good pinch by TSM, good timing by Geo, and good communication. Achieved rotated into meeting at just the right time to potentially, stop what was going on. And Geo is in just the right position to distract enough, not only to, gain line of sight into the kitchen, but to force Sloppy's attention away from the place that they knew and a defender would probably come from, which was the meeting hall. But back in earlier in that round, if Sloppy would have had control of the meeting hatch, or excuse me, the attic hatch before that plant was going down, they would have easily won that round. That round was in the bag if that was the case. But hindsight's 2020. I thought Tempo Storm's attempt was good. I thought their rotation was good, but TSM's teamwork and communication was just a little bit better. It was just good enough to take advantage of Tempo's not only little rush, because that's kind of a rush. Like once the attackers open a wall like that and it's called out, the defenders are going to rotate. And the longer that the attackers spend trying to deliberate on how they're going to plant once they open a wall like that, the more time it gives for the defenders to make something happen. And it's called stalling out. So if a team is stalling out, and you know that a team is stalling out, and you're a competitive player or in ranked, and you see the attackers are stalling out, meaning they just opened a bunch of walls and now they're just not doing anything other than holding angles, that's your moment to either pinpoint where an attacker is and decide if you can push that attacker, or try to pinpoint where an attacker is and figure out okay, how can we attack this? How can we push this attacker together? It's kind of the moment that the defenders get to be aggressive. But if the attackers are always dictating the momentum of the round, as they should, the defender should never have that much time to make those kinds of decisions. They should always be reactionary decisions, if that makes sense. I don't know if you guys agree with, not agree with, but I don't know if you guys appreciate when I talk about little things like that. I feel like I just went on a little bit of a ramble there about nothing related to the actual game itself, but something, but related to what high level competitive play revolves around. And as you can see here, Mark is pinpointing where the electrical claw is. I think this is good use of utility. But do I think that it should be necessary every time you bring a Kali to bring an IQ to pinpoint where you need to put the lances? Maybe in some instances, but not all, is basically my point. But what I was saying before was that when I kind of ramble like that about small things like that, if you guys think it's stupid or whatever, I don't know, I want to know. Because if you do think that it's stupid, then maybe I can put my attention onto something else, if that makes sense. Right now, though, the push from Tempo comes in pretty strong. They take control of, basically, I think they all just kind of push down the tower stairs and have one person watching flanks. So they're basically doing a normal push. They can open up the electrical wall if they want, which they don't, but there's already holes in it, so they don't have to. Basically, TSM's defense here revolves around these C4s, preventing the single panel wall that Merc is playing on from getting opened up, which, is not an issue. Tempo is going to be able to open it up. They opened up the electrical hatch. Now they're going to open it up, but Bolo throws a nice C4 and actually gets crazy. So it stops the wall from getting opened up, and then Merc rotates to swing at the same time. So TSM's positioning was just better there, and they utilized, their operator positioning along with their utility to gain free kills that the attackers have to put themselves in a position to die from. Basically, like, them knowing that you can throw a C4 from the freezer door to stop the single panel wall from getting opened, unbeknownst to Tempo, whether they knew that could happen or not, is, an issue. Which is why I think one-dimensional pushes on Oregon, particularly downstairs defense, will not work. In theory, pushing from one direction, you have the ability to trade out, but because of the layout of the map, Tempo cannot effectively mount any kind of pressure that TSM doesn't have crossfires or abilities to trade from. So if they would have pressured the freezer a little bit or pressured main stairs, maybe they were pressuring main stairs, but if you're pushing all the way from blue and like back, pressuring main stairs isn't the way you want to go. You want to pressure the freezer. It's either you pressure the main and the freezer or you pressure blue in the freezer. You can't pressure the front when you're pressuring the back, is basically my point, because it doesn't apply enough pressure to the defenders. And like I said earlier, that's just another detail of like the position that Bola was playing inside of the freezer is the most advantageous position for a defender to play in on that objective when the attack only comes from blue construction side. There are just so many avenues and lines of sight for that player to utilize in that position. So now we saw before it was 5-1. Now it's already 5-5. TSM's already come back and seemed pretty easily at that, except for the one round where Tempo Storm could have planted in meeting if they waited maybe like 20 seconds, but that 20 seconds is subjective because there's really no telling how much time it would have actually taken Sloppy to get to that position. But to reiterate a couple of things, I don't think that Tempo Storm is playing bad by any means. I just think that TSM have so many more things working for them on this map defensively. So defending upstairs, Tempo Storm are doing a good job of droning, and it looks like they want to do more of a big window kind of take. They're making sure there's no ADS by the bed. Mark actually gets a great kill onto Merc, and that's Maestro off the board. That's definitely someone you have to get rid of. But now that they're going to go for like a big window push, and the walls to kids are all soft, none of them are reinforced, it doesn't give Tempo Storm the ability to safely plant anywhere in that position without a lot of like extra bodies. So basically 5 versus 4 isn't enough. Even though they know one's downstairs and that kind of prompts them to push up the white stairs to try to like gain the man count on the defenders. This is where I don't understand what's going on. So basically there's just a wipeout of the attackers, and they try to push through smoke, or it was just a good like well-timed smoke from Shala, which I want to assume it was more of that than anything else. But they all try to push in to big window without holding or like flat throwing flashbangs into generator. Like it just seemed like an all-out like let's all push in right now, but we're all pushing in from one direction basically, and we're not pressuring from anywhere else again. Like, yes, the attackers came up white stairs, but they're not like nobody's repelled on like generator window holding like a cross through trophy or like towards trophy door or like through, the couch room and generator. Nobody's potentially like even like acting like they're going to jump in through the attic window or shooting through the kid's window or anything. And they know that Geo is downstairs. They just droned him out. And they know, or at least they can accurately predict that there aren't any other defenders anywhere else on the map. So to me, I just think that Tempo Storm are trying to play like close to home, like trying to stick together and go for trades. But because of the lack of operator positioning, trying to hold different crossfires onto the objective, I don't think that they're ever going to make any headway doing that. Especially not against TSM on Oregon. Maybe on another map that could work, like Coastline, that could probably work in some instances, for example, but not on Oregon. And now we're going to see TSM defend Kitchen and Meeting again. And Tempo Storm does go for a different kind of attack here. And I think that because they know that they're not going to be able to do the same thing twice. They're not just going to be able to open that wall and TSM not be as prepared for it as they were before. Even though the TSM seemed like they were prepared for it, they definitely had to adapt mid-round because it wasn't something that they really anticipated that heavily. But Mark looks like he wants to play at least inside of the tower. He has 3 ADSs here, positioned in various spots in T2 and T3. And actually, Geo's going to go up there and play. So he's going to place mute jammers at least, probably at the windows or something, unless he's already placed them in other locations. But this is a very extended hold by TSM. And it's basically going to revolve around Bolo playing in kids to protect Merc, Merc playing in attic to protect Geo, and then the other two defenders, Achieved and Shala, are basically going to be holding down the kitchen, and Achieved is probably going to be rotating back and forth depending on where the pressure is coming from. And Tempo Storm opt to go for a Montaigne play. It's not a bad choice, but based on the positioning of TSM and the holes that they have in various locations to watch every single entryway into the objective, there really isn't going to be much Montaigne can do here. Now, if they're able to dislodge Bolo from his position in kids, hey, you can maybe plant behind the Montaigne or push up into a position where you could plant behind the Montaigne. But, Chala playing smoke is going to start delaying their push. And then this is a great, great coverage of the big window upstairs from inside of server. This is why I love the way that TSM defends sometimes. They find all the small, tiny angles to cover various entryways into the building that the attackers want to push through. Like, Tempo Storm cannot push through the big window without trading now. So it's basically, one's going to jump in and get shotgunned by Chala. Another one's going to jump in and kill Bolo. And then Shala's going to get that kill too. So they basically got a 2-for-1, and they still have defenders on the objective instead of off. It's just better. Obviously, in this case, Bolo gets a double. Mark trades it out. And then Geo dies as well. I'm not sure from where. I didn't actually pay attention to the kill feed there. I was going into like the scenario of what's actually like theory crafting, if you will. But now with 30 seconds left, if they had taken control upstairs earlier, they could apply more vertical pressure, but now they can't. Chala's pushed up closer, knowing that, he can. Has great timing there onto Crazy, who has the diffuser. Mark is above. There's really nothing he can do. Dream gets taken down. Mark tries to push in, and that's that. TSM win the map. So, thanks for watching, guys. I hope that you learned something, saw the ways the pros do things, and understand or tried to at least like see why they did it. And also, I just wanted to comment, what a great game by Shala, who made his debut back into Pro League. Congratulations. I'm gonna come out with the next map tomorrow, guys. It'll be, I believe. Let me see what the next map is. I'll just give you a little sneak peek. What is next map was Villa, and actually this was a much closer game, if I'm remembering correctly. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one.